Hello.
I think we are live, sir.
Yes,
Ganesh,
sir,
sir, we
we are
are
live.
really sorry to keep you waiting.
I
Yes, sir, we
think
are live.
are we live, Zaki?
Yeah, we are live.
Okay, so we just uh, some of them are just joining in, so I'm just getting messages to just hang on. Ganesh sir, just a second, so that we are just letting others join in also.
We know when you're ready, and
Yes, Zaki, can you just monitor the YouTube comments also? What all are coming there, so that we can kind of ensure that all the questions are picked up there also. Okay.
Okay, sir, sure. I will just check out YouTube comments.
Okay, I think we are all set, so everyone is able to hear me properly. Attendees, I'm just doing a check. If you're able to hear us, hello, good morning, Karthik, others, can you able to hear us properly? Okay, thank you, Supriya, thank you, Satish. So, good morning, guys. Good morning to everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to have Ganesh Balakrishnan, sir. So, he is a partner from Deloitte in the audit and assurance. Just to give a brief about Ganesh, he's a partner in audit and assurance practice with 3 decades of experience and is the office managing partner of Deloitte Haskins and Sells LLP for Hyderabad office. Ganesh also heads the L&D for the South Asia cluster for Deloitte audit function. He is currently the part of IFRS faculty with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for all their in-house and open house programs and serves as a faculty of Dun & Bradstreet for their programs on IFRS and US GAAP. He is the co-opted member of the research committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for the year 2015 and 16. He was a co-opted member of the research committee of Institute's Southern region for 2009-10 and was a co-opted member of the Auditing and Assurance Standard Board for year 2010 and 11. He has been involved in the preparation of implementation guide on materiality, sampling, and going concern released by Accounting, Auditing, and Assurance Standard Board. He is associated with the Quality Review Board and Peer Review Board set up by ICI, the Indian accounting regulator, on technical reviews of the accounting firm. He is also on the regular faculty of the Board of Studies for ICI in imparting the web-based lectures for students. He is presently associated with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar College and Bhavan's Vivekananda College for review of syllabus in accounting and commerce. He has undertaken IFRS training for the Osmania University faculties. He has also presented papers in various forums in India and internationally at universities and other professional bodies on IGAP, US GAAP, and IFRS. He is a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, cost accountant. He is also a CPA from the American Institute of the CPAs. I mean, that's a massive introduction about Ganesh, sir. Over to you, sir. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you at Samandar Education. And we are really excited today to hear about the latest technology which is coming up. And people who are watching us, thank you so much for attending in early morning on a weekend. And once more, thanks to Ganesh, sir. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much.
all right, Sripad. A very good morning to everyone who's joining in today. And thank you so much. And so I didn't know that I'm going to talk so much about technology changes, but nevertheless, I'll do my best to help you understand and navigate. As you are aware that technology is taking over all of us, so would be in future. Even the CPA would be looked at differently. No longer you will have somebody to write you an account, someone to do a tax and all of this. Everything will be seamlessly be changed and overtaken by technology. And what's actually the buzzword? Data analysis. Today, what I'm going to talk, there were 2 topics. I said how to get prepared for an interview. I'll keep it the last, but let me spend next 20 to 30 minutes just to take you through. Again, this is something which for you to, it takes a lot of time to digest, because it's not something which is normally seen for a professional, financing professional. It's more who's got knowledge, both financing as well as the IT based knowledge. Probably he's in a much better position to understand. But it's not difficult, but it requires an open mind and the mindset change for you to really understand as to how you would go about data analytics. Now, today we talk about big data, we talk about so many things, right? We all see what it is, but what we actually use. For instance, if you go to a client, you do not know the volume of the data. Has anybody checked the volume of data? I don't think so. Probably it's the audit interest. For instance, if you were to go through this entire population of the entire inputs and outputs that are processed by the computer software in your client using a SAP platform, you may probably check from there, okay, fine, let me check how much is on purchases. I may take up audit interest. So I'm actually not taking the entire population and dissecting it. And that is where the future is going to be. You are going to talk about the big data. You're going to talk about the data analytics. We are talking about the entire population. We are not going to restrict ourselves just to information that each is of an audit interest. So I think that is where data analytics would play very, very well. Again, to be very honest, even today, I wouldn't say a couple of years ago, even today, while people are talking about data analytics, it's just evolving. It's like a teenage love. Everyone talks about it. Nobody knows how to do it. Everyone thinks everyone else is doing it. So everyone claims they are doing it. So this is an information age where you have your YouTubes, you have Googles, you have got everything where you can go and do a self-learning. But what is important is self-learning is the information that is hosted on a Google or a YouTube is only the basic mechanism in which they expect you to understand. They don't tell you, if they tell you the secrets of how to implement that, probably then you may replace them. So I think what is important for all of us as professionals, and I suppose all our professionals working either in practice or in industry or elsewhere, what's important for all of us is invest in learning, and big data is definitely the most important subject that we need to look at it. And in data component, you can talk about artificial intelligence, you can talk about blockchain, you can talk about data analytics. But data analytics basically is, because today the topic is more driven for an audit from an auditor's perspective, I'm restricting more from an audit angle. So it's data analytics which is predominantly used by the auditors, and actually this is which is assuming significant importance in our journey of profession. Why do I say the journey of profession? Because not everyone would like to see. Everybody looks at analytical reviews, right? So they'll say compare between previous year, current year, look at a variance, and therefore that's how you look at it. But when you do a data analytics, it is beyond everything. It is not about a recording. It is the process of recording, how it is recorded. That is what the whole data analytics will talk to you about, and I'll touch upon some of this. Now, predominantly, there was a survey which was recently done by the New Vintage Partners in 2020, based on using the survey of Fortune 1000 senior C executives, decision makers. Just imagine, only 26% have forged a data culture. That means we are actually lagging behind. See, and again, what is important is the investment that is required by many companies in information technology space is huge. And that is where people are slowly drifting to it. I think one of the things that came up through was the GST, which was on the portal, online portal. So is now the tax, which is getting more and more robust in the online portal. Now the culture, and in fact, even if you see in India, the Companies Act has actually moved to a situation wherein they said there should be an audit trail. So this is effective 1st of April 2022, that all companies should have an audit trail. So I would assume that the percentage that we are seeing today on the data culture, the data drive, and how each one are competing on data analytics, data and analytics. There are three different things. It's the entire data and the analytics that you apply on the data. So we are talking about 45%. There is awareness which is happening, but there is a long way. And again, we're talking about Fortune 1000 companies. We have more than 10,000 companies that we need to talk about. So imagine these gap that we have in terms of this. But what is important for all of us? When you start looking at this data analytics, right, you will start realizing that how efficient you will become as a professional. And that is where you have to start reskilling yourself. Let's say you got the audit knowledge, but if you got the technical knowledge, the IT knowledge, probably with both the combination of audit and technical skills, you will be able to perform much better. Because in big data, see, end of the day, there is dumps. You call in IT, we have got software dumps, right? So the whole predominantly is that you've got a lot of information. But the fact is how to use it, how to use this becomes very, very critical. So there are two things which one should learn. And in fact, data analytics significantly these days, while they use bot, they also have recommend what is called as using of Excel, because all the data analytics started with Excel analytics, but data analytics is much larger. You write an algorithm and then come back with what is the information that you're looking for of interest. And I'll give you a couple of examples as we go along. But what is important for all of us is we need to be cognizant that we have the information, but how do we use that information to make it a meaningful purpose, either for the purpose of audit, even for the purpose of our analysis, even for the purpose of arriving at a decision. That becomes very, very important. So if you look at the source of big data, right? We look at it, basically we talk about the data warehouse appliances, right? You've got databases, you've got Internet of Things, you've got cloud, you've got media, you've got activity generated reports, all of these. And all of these assume significant information. In fact, you need to capture all of these information. Some informations are based in cloud, some are based in data warehouses. All of these, there is also a concept called a hybrid model of where you use a low cost investments and versus with an IT, because you might keep certain things in an IT space, process input, process output, you might keep it, but the other rest of this which does not add value, you might keep it in non-IT platforms. So there are a host of things, the sources which you can look at it. So, but what is important for all of us, we should be aware of these things. So if you look at the databases, right, basically what happens is whatever the traditional database and the modern database is basically gets combined into what is called amalgam into big data. So you take the entire information from there. It also, what should the database do to you, right? So what is the whole objective? If you have information, but it does not make, it's not makes meaningful. For instance, you got the entire inventory down, but if you do not get insights from this, how is it classified by, let's say, by an age? How is it classified by, let's say, the fast moving material? How is it classified by scarcity, right? If it does not give you the insights, right, having a big data or doing an analysis was not going to help. So these databases basically should provide you insights through which your businesses is able to do much better. So these are some things which you need to start looking at it in terms of it. Many of the databases, some use SQL, some use Oracle, some use MS Access, DB2, and all of that. Now, today, if you were to talk about, right, we are in an age of technology, right? We are in an age of technology wherein many of us are exposed to information, a lot of information. You have an artificial intelligence which goes through a different level. You've got machine learning which goes to a different aspect. You've got blockchain technology which uses different sources of information. Now, when you look at all of this information, in fact, I would say one of the ways is, how do you capture your interest? For instance, you go through, let's say, something in an Amazon, right? Suddenly you will find if Amazon is listed, let's say if some of these Amazon items are listed in the Facebook, so it will show you of those interests. Imagine the intelligence that it picks up through this whole, the manner in which you behave, for instance, the manner in which you access any platform, it gives you immediate result. That's how the machine learning does through it. It understands what you need, what you're expecting. That's how it goes. But what is important there is that is only the output that you're looking at. You're not looking at the input. So imagine the person who's actually gone behind, thought through your process, looked at the millennials, look at the technology, look at the interest, look at the connections, look at various databases, and extracted that information and put it across to you. Technology changes is no longer local, it's global. And absolutely, whatever information that you think through, if you have access to any of the websites, in the social media or any of the sites, you're automatically, all of your interest, even if you're not, you're attracted towards it. It's sort of a pull that you will get toward that information. So what is important is with this complex environment, there is changes in the business dynamics. When there is changes in the business dynamics, in the manner in which businesses are conducted, you could call it complexity, you could call it efficiency, you can talk about profitability. Today, very recently, everyone is going towards what is called global tax because there are tax haven countries. So evolving regulatory landscapes. So there are so many changes that are coming through. This makes the whole environment very, very complex. Then the question is, why data analytics? Why do you need data analytics? Trust me, if you were actually in a traditional, when the accounts were all maintained in manual, not in an IT software, nothing. It was easier for you to go through page by page by page. But today, if you look at the spread of the company, the spread of its network, the spread to which the businesses have become global, and the use of technology, is it possible that I'll tell my client, give me an output, give me an output, give me an output, and I just look at it? The most important part of it, can I also be dependent on only the sampling? I might say, hey, listen, my sampling methodology under the international auditing standards talks about if I use a particular sample, the attributes of all the sample gets met, and therefore my entire population is accepted. That is not the theory which will happen when you're dealing with information which is much larger. You have to have tools that will help you. And basically, the most significant part about data analytics is to improve quality. Now, a lot of firms are being pulled upon or called upon to improve their efficiency in audit quality. I think one of the main drivers would be data analytics. One of these, it not necessarily be the one, but you could have various tools that you could use. You could use various bots that you can have information, or you can use an SQL, can get that. But just for understanding purposes, it allows the auditors to be more efficient when you are dealing with larger data. It also helps you to identify risk at the assertion level, at that level where the transaction. Now the question today is, when you look at any of the risk control metrics today, you might say, hey, listen, whether there was a process initiation, whether there was this, whether the process initiation went into purchase order, to procurement, to receipt, to accounting, to payment, and everything is just the cycle gets over. Now, the question is procure to pay. So we are talking about a cycle of a procure to pay. Now, the question is just preparing a GRN is the only basis where risk is mitigated? Or how many GRNs are prepared even without verifying the underlying documents? Now, look at this difference. For us as an auditor, we might say, hey, listen, is this supported by a GRN? Is this supported by purchase order? Is this supported by terms of agreement? We all talk about it and say, okay, the sample is agreed. But let's say the person who's entering the information in the system enters all the GRNs without even verifying the underlying document. Then what happens? That is not identified by your process of audit. That is identified by only through a data analytics. You might put a query in and say, tell me in 1 hour, let's say in a year, in 1 hour, you can only process about 12 invoices, or let's say 15 invoices, right? Because of the underlying thing. Now you can come back and say, hey, listen, please give me information where it is much more than 15 or much more than 20. I want to understand it. Probably that data analytics will help you discover patterns, deviations, inconsistencies, and that will help you to identify risk. And I think this is where data analytics will play a major role. Data analytics, again, is a combination of improving fraud detection, absolutely. But again, I would want to put a word of caution. Fraud detection is more about the patterns, but not necessarily if there are certain information which appears to be appropriate and does not get detected. Why do I say that? If you have structured transactions, probably this transaction which goes through the same cycle of the risk control matrix, you may not be able to identify it. You may not be able to identify the proprietary of the transaction. But definitely you can identify how many people posted on a Sunday, on a holiday, how many people posted transactions after, let's say, closing hours. Now, these are some things which you can do, which your data analytics can help you. Now, with this COVID being there around, the biggest challenge that came through, or for instance, if you're dealing with telecom companies or oil field companies, suppose somebody were to say, go and do a physical observation of these inventories or these plants or these oil wells. How would you do it? Drones are used. So just imagine the technology that is used to verify the existence of those assets. And this is a great thing that has come through. Earlier days, you used to use helicopters and do it, but today you use drones and get that. Machine learning for test of details, because the machine, if you input all of this information, the machine understands how the processes happen and then throws out all the outliers which needs to be looked at. Cyber security controls are very important aspect of it. I think cyber security is not alone for IT companies. Cyber security is beyond IT companies. It is applicable to the entire spectrum of those companies which have got access or which are working on information technology. For instance, very recently, if you see, a lot of these pharma companies, databases were compromised. The reason being that, people from China or from Russia, actually, it is actually that attacking from Russia, started attacking these databases because India is predominantly the hub for, apart from China, the hub for pharmaceutical. They wanted to get that information, how the process is done, what are the tests. And that's how some of the companies in India, information got compromised. So therefore, cyber security is applicable controls. Cyber security controls are a must for entire thing. Now, let's look at the disruption. In fact, if you see the new paradigm, right, the paradigm changes. Now, what is the constant change? Suppose somebody were to ask, what is constantly changing, right? In my view, the technology disruption is the constant change. And adaptability of us to that change is what makes us relevant. And therefore, you need to start looking at all of these. Businesses have moved to e-commerce platform. Your CPAs, you were supposed to go to US, now you can do it from India. So these are the changes that are coming through it. Now, when those changes are coming through it, adaptability becomes very, very important. And that is where we need to start looking at it. Now, need for change. In fact, what we need to understand, the whys and the what of the audit, right? Why are we doing an audit? Is that an assurance we're giving? Is it a compliance we are doing? Who does the audit? How is the audit done? What is the output of the audit? If someone were to understand this concept, that, I'll give you a simple example. If you were working in a chartered accountant firm, right, and you join as an article trainee, the most critical area, right, called the cash and bank is given to the article. That means the most critical area is given to the least understood or trained profession. Now, just look at the paradigm shift that has to come. So the way we do audit, the way we are performing the work, the way the output is today, when you look at a lot of these issues regulators are raising, is what is it to the stakeholders? Don't tell me that you are all a great auditor, you're saying, great firm, you are not a bloodhound, but you're a watchdog. Somebody might say, I don't want a bloodhound, I don't want a watchdog, but I want a barking dog. End of the day, we are all professionals. We are no dogs. But what is important is we need to address the larger medium is when technology has changed, our auditing standards have not undergone change. Our manner in which we still do sampling, we still do what is called as materiality check on this. When I can entirely take the big data, do an analysis using the data analytics and come back with what should be there. Is it not easier for all of us? Should the regulators also not look at that landscape and start thinking differently and say, hey, listen, no longer these materiality, sampling, all of this is of audit indices. Now you've got data, use the tool, get this information, be done with exceptions, and then come back on the output. Because the output, what it says is, the output of an audit is not an audit report that you issue as an auditor. The output is that this information which you sign off as a true and fair is used by those stakeholders to invest, to stay in the company, to join the company, to have a partnership with the company. So the extent has actually undergone change. And therefore, you need to start looking at it, even when you are in the stage of information stage, why the regulators not moving. You can always go what is called as historical finance. In fact, when blockchain is going to be the future, when is the future and will be the future, you don't need audits. And that's rightly so. The technology which is actually changing, when you have blockchain, then that's at the direction where the government, Indian government is saying, listen, why do you need audits if it doesn't meet the threshold? I don't need somebody to put me an attest function and put a stamp and give it to me because it does not carry any value to me. So therefore, you need to look at that aspect of it. When you reimagine audit, it brings you opportunity. Sorry, I just missed it. When you get reimagine audit, it brings opportunity. And when I say audit need not be statutory audit. Audit can be internal audit. Audit can be an audit of your information within the company. It could be anything else, a systems audit, a management audit. It could be anything else. And therefore, you need to start re-looking at it. And let me tell you one thing. Somebody said, in one of my presentations, so what will happen if the people will get displaced when the technology comes? I said, listen, when Steve Jobs introduced Apple iPhones, it is a man who introduced this. As long as the thinking of the man is there, the technology is only a subset of the man's mind. And therefore, if you reimagine yourself, don't become a slave to technology, but use technology more effectively. That's what makes you the different professional. That in the next slide, which really talks about, I don't need many people. I don't need article assistant. I don't need support staff. I don't need anything else. All I need is one audit partner, one manager, and one staff, and the entire spectrum of specialists with audit data center expert. I'm done with it. I think that is the extent of what the future would look like, and the future audit team looks like. Now let's look at it, right? How do you bridge this gap? I know most important for all of us, right, is these five components: exploiting digitally, integrity. In fact, integrity is something which you should be applying. In fact, I was addressing one of the conference saying, sir, can we tweak this so therefore this information is not visible? I said, listen, the first fundamental principle is integrity. If you don't have integrity, if you say that I want to hide information from somebody else, I think we have lost the entire thing. So we need to be exploiting the digital. The digital should not exploit us. We have to demonstrate our independence. Our audit quality automatically gets picked up. And how do we communicate? I think when we have to bridge this gap, right, the most important thing for all of us is communication. Communication is through your reports, the reports that gets generated. Let me give you one example, which is easier for you to understand, right? So there was this retail company, and the retail company was selling to various distributors. But, at some point in time when there were certain returns that came through, and that returns was, the sales was happening, the returns was coming through. The question then came up is, was this to deviate or vitiate a process which would say, listen, I'll book revenue this quarter, but I will have reversal in the next quarter. So when the data analytics team went through this process, right? They verified customer record, they verified distributors record, they verified everything. They didn't get anything. So they went to the distributor, which was actually doing the dispatches. The distributor was dispatching between 5 and 7, and they were using particular ink. And the light which was falling on that particular ink was not able to distinguish whether it was a blue or an yellow. Right? So if you had, let's say, for instance, you had lace yellow, so yellow would go into some other people. If it is, let's say, blue lace, then it would go to somebody else, the spicy ones. So then now what really happened is, then when they really found the cause, the people who were picking up this were picking up the wrong deliveries or the wrong products and delivering it to the distributor. And that's the reason. And this used to happen only but in a period between 5 to 7. But how was this possible? All your documents was fine. But what was possible is identifying which time, which location, which place, and all of this made huge difference when it came to it. So therefore, what is important is having data analytics is not so easy, but using data analytics becomes very, very critical. Now, one of the things of exploiting the power of digital is you have to change your mindset. You need to have the right mix of people, right mix of technology, and you should have the right tool set with you. whether it's a cognitive computing, advanced analytics, or whatever the case may be. But just think through it. If you don't change your mindset, if you do exactly the same way, okay, anyway, this is output, give me a printout, I want to do it. I think that's not going to work. If I'm going to have people who do not have skills and using it on this and depending only on the clients to help you out to tell you what it is, and then you just make a note, it's not going to help. You need to have people in your team who drives that skill, who's got the skill and who drives that skill. And that is what becomes essential. So invest in technology. As I said, when you have to enhance audit integration model, it is an integrated approach between your core audit will never go away. An auditor remains an auditor. You cannot take it away, because the greatest thing about an auditor is his understanding, is his subjectivity, it is his knowledge, it is his interpretation skills. That is the core audit. That judgment you cannot take away from a core auditor. You may use experts, you may use data analytics, but if you combine all of these three, then it becomes an integrated approach. And this is exactly what would move away from traditional audit steps to what is called as data analytics. And I think you need to identify, because there should be a lot of brainstorming that should be there. You should look at which data you're looking at, what information am I going to extract, how am I going to analyze this data, what are the things that I need to do, which is the interest that I need to look at it, and what is the story that I will communicate to the board, and what do you hear from the board. I think all of these is like a cinematic thing, right from the time of planning, writing script writers, to storytelling, to producer, to director, to with the players, all of these, and finally the picture comes to it. I think that's exactly what you would need to do when you have to enhance the insight-driven audit methodologies. Again, data analytics competency model again talks about technical analyticals. You need to have the technical skills, the data analysis, the business acumen, and the storytelling. Exactly, if you look at any of this, what is of interest is what you need to look. You have to always look at, it is not from a regulator perspective, but it is from a user's perspective. How much you understand about the business, how much are you aligned to technology? What are the softwares that you're using? What are the analysis that you're doing it on of this? How you're testing and validating becomes very, very essential. So use of data analytics and artificial intelligence audit. Now, today, look at it, right? You look at any Swiggy, right? You either can go to a core meal or you can get a more meal, right? So your data analytics actually, when you do sampling, you're talking about 5, but when you talk about population, you're talking about more. So it moves away from a core to a more, how to have a wow, there to here, sample to ample. I think that is exactly what data analytics is all about. I'm not saying data analytics is the end in it by itself, but that's a tool that if it is made available and if it is exploited well, it becomes very, very critical. We are moving in an analytics journey from process obedience to process objective. Who prepares a GRN versus how is the GRN, whether at what point in time GRN is prepared becomes the objective, from an output to an outcome. Basically, when we talk about an output, what is the outcome of the entire objective of doing this work? I'm not output anyway, the output is that, the GRNs are all agreed as per this, prepared, approved and all recorded and all this. Is that your output? Or the outcome is very critical. By this analysis, what am I trying to achieve? That becomes very important. From data to data, because we always pray that, this sample should collect all of that information. This sample should have the best of this information. I should look at it. This information population this sample should demonstrate the entire population. Nobody should be able to, even a regulator should not be able to find out beyond this. It's from data to data. So therefore, what is important for all of us? Whether it is in a traditional or a modern, both are the same. But what is important is the auditor's intelligence, which is very, very critical. Data analytics, when you look at it, right, you have a belief that something is going wrong. But through this process, you will always look at and then validate whether it is certain. Certainty could be that it could go wrong. Certainty could be that it's not wrong, but it's actually the other part of it. So analytics will actually be generally a belief, because you believe that analytics would help you emerge and give you some sort of an output. So the types of data analytics, we look at what is called as descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. What happened? Why did it happen? What will happen? How will it make it happen? So therefore, this entire process of brainstorming, collating data, looking at the various tools that are available, looking at the interest. So this absolutely requires a lot of brainstorming. This requires a lot of thought process. This is not something which can be done like I give you an Excel sheet and say you just input this information and therefore I get the output. It does not work. What happened? Why did it happen? So you're actually questioning. Why did it happen? You can't say it happened because that person. So you are going beyond the process itself. You're saying, hey, the guy did more than that, even though he's, as per my approval system, he's authorized to do it. Or for instance, some companies, take the case, I'll give you another example. So let's say many of these companies use in retail, especially when the discount offer comes. Now, let's say during Dashras and Diwalis, you have all of these companies which comes with what are called as discounts. So now let's say you did it in a big basket, for instance, or you did it in a retail or whatever the e-commerce. You saw this that you ordered, and suddenly you found that the order, which was supposed to, we did not carry discount, but the next day in the evening you came to know that this is changing. So they're giving you an additional discount of 20%. So what do? You cancel this and ask for a refund, saying that stating something, again reorder the same item, taking the discount. Ordinarily, what happens in a sales returns, you say, okay, fine, order cancel, nature of the cancellation, and then therefore you record it. But you don't go and correlate whether the same person ordered the same item again using this benefit. So what happened? Why did it happen? When it will happen? How can we make it happen? I think these are the questions we should start looking at it. If we start questioning, probably we'll get there. Because what is important in the steps of data analytics, you need to define your objectives. You need to compile data from the data sources. You have to clean the data because you can't take the entire data. You have to then analyze data and analyze the reports. And I think these are some things which you need to look at it, right from initial, developing, defined, advanced, and leading. These are some of the steps that you will follow, which will be repeated for you, but this is the process that it is done. Again, when you look at how do you improve your audit quality? Basically, audit quality is because it helps you identify the risk assessments, the execution, and the communication. Because what is important in a data analytics is the auditors gets the benefit of using insights, the insights which he gives because of a transaction. You might say, come back and say, hey, listen, while the GRN process was appropriate, while the discount process was appropriate, but we have insights relating to where people are exploiting it, where the old customer itself is canceling and again reordering the same product. Therefore, there's a loss to the company to this extent. Probably that becomes an insight that you go, and data analytics actually uses this. There will be significant use. So much of data we have, but the analytics which are used are very, very insufficient at this point in time. So, data analytics can be used from a less complex to more complex, from matching debits and credits to journal entries to 100% of the transaction stream. You can look at it. Data visualizations. You can throw that information in and then observe it. Which are the outliers? Which are the ones which should be, is it within a range or which is outside the range, right? For instance, you could have a store, right? Most of the stores are supposed to have based on the footfalls, right? So you might know this is per footfall, but there are certain footfalls which are outliers. Why is it there? Is it because of number of hours? Is it because it increases more of products? Is it because of low cost products are kept? Why is it there? And therefore, this data visualization is one of the tools that you can look at it. You can also automate the traditionally manual processes using data analytical tools. You can use Excel. Many people use Excel to do it, but if it is not there, there are other tools which are used by them. Digital audit space, if you look at it, what are the things that you need to look at it? It drives quality, it drives transparency, it enhances and provides business insight. But there are challenges. Now, again, if you're giving this, so for instance, if you're giving information to somebody who does not have knowledge, then it is of no use. So you have to look at it, whether the data is being collected, what is the extent of data that you're collecting it. whether you're getting support, whether it is from multiple sources. Do you have skills? These are a lot of challenges that are faced in data analytics. Lack of knowledge is bigger challenges. Alignment, because the information of data which maintained by the company is not compatible with the tools that you may have. So these are some of the challenges one would look at it. I'll give you about 5-10 minutes before I'll take about 5 minutes now and give you 10 minutes back to you for question and answers. But one other question that came through, but just before I conclude on data analytics is something, is not a buzzword any longer. Data analytics is here to stay. What should you do to it? You should work on learning all of these skills, learn machine skills, learn our blockchain technology, learn macros, how to make do macros in Excel, learn Excel analytics. I think and plus you work on clients, get an experience, work on projects. Only then it just enhances. Just merely learning also, education also does not really help, but if you don't put it to practice. So the another question that came up is on how to ace an interview. I think what is important is, again, to Simadhar as well, Sripal, to the rest of the people, is be punctual. Never ever start any program beyond the time that you've designed. Be punctual. You'd always dress to impress. I mean, somebody might say, if someone were a follower of Vivekananda, he says that your dress would what character determines your character, but my character determines how I am. That's fine, but when you're going to a person who doesn't know you, I think you need to dress to impress. Stay honest. You have to be very, very honest when you go and talk to the company. Do substantial research. Don't throw big informations, right? Don't say, I know this, I look at it. You have to be confident, but at the same time, it should not be seen as something which comes as an arrogant. Be concise in your answers, relate answers to your accomplishments and skills. Do not say, I've done this. No, I only had a degree. No, I think I've done this. Practice good non-verbal communication, how you do this, how you express, how you say, how you listen. Listening skills are the most important thing in a good communications. Listen to the question. If you don't understand, ask the question and then say, this is what it is. Stay honest, be honest as far as possible, right? Always as a person, you should do a proper strength weak analysis. Prepare a perfect resume. Don't download from any of the resumes from any of Google's and all that and just copy it and paste it. It should exactly relate to your skills. It should exactly speak what you have done. Write about yourself. That's very, very important. Practice answers which are very important to the job. Go through it, do research, significant research. If you got some existing employees, go and you have friendship, you can go and ask them what is that about the company, one all of that. They may not necessarily disclose everything, but probably they'll help you. Why should they hire you? Because that is something which keeps coming up. You should answer appropriately. There are various answers that comes through it, but why should they hire you is a very important aspect of it. You cannot say that next 5 years I'll come and interview you itself. So that's not the way. It's always about your personal goals, your aspiration goals versus the organization goals, and that's what matters most. So other important thing which is required is do a run test with your computer, pick the perfect spot for lighting, log on early, look your interviewer in the eyes and use engaged body language, ensure you have a good internet connection, listen carefully. These are some of the tips when you do a virtual interviews. I think that's a very important aspect of it, right? Avoid unclear answering and ramblings, lying on your resume, sitting down before invited, interrupting the interviewer, bad-mouthing past employees. A lot of people do bad-mouthing and all. I don't think so that's inappropriate. They cannot say that you are the best and the rest are the worst. Because a person who cannot even respect his company which has employed him cannot work in any other organization. I think that's a fundamental principle. You can never badmouth anybody. All right. So thank you very much. So I'll stop sharing and give back 10 minutes to you for your question answers. Over to you, Sripal. Sripal, are there?
Yes, sir. Sir, we have a question from Sridhar. Can we learn? Sir, it's from Sheshagir Rao. Sorry, the question says, what is the difference between data analyst and financial analyst? Sir, you're on mute.
Sorry, data analysis is the entire population, right? Does not relate to, so for instance, let me take you an easier explanation for you, a financial analyst. What does a financial analyst do? He will say, he will compare your cash flows, he'll compare your gross margins, he'll compare how you're servicing it, debt, right? He will compare if this future investment is going to be there, what is the resources that are required, how much funding is required. He will look at the tying up the long-term funds, short-term funds. He will find out how to get leverages. That is basically what a financial analyst does. Whereas a data analyst is basically, his interests are completely different. Suppose if I go as a forensic auditor, right? My interests are completely different, right? Compared to what I'm as a statutory auditor, because my interests are different. So a data analysis is much larger. You use much larger population and bring analysis which is of interest to you, for which it helps you in your either your analysis in coming out your report.
All right, Sheshagir Rao, I hope this answer from Ganesh sir helped you. Sir, the next question is from Rajesh. The question goes like this. Sir, what would be an ideal software toolkit for any person who wants to learn data analytics, especially for audit?
So no, there are various data analytics tools, right? So, but the point, what is important for all of us is you need to start I would rather go in a different way. I would say first go through the theory part of it, right? There are like Pythons which are there, right? So if you want to have tools there like that. So, but I would rather expect you to first go and understand the theoretical aspect of it before you go to what is called as the data analytics. You could have a Power BI. So there are various tools that are available. But what is important is that you need to start looking at understanding it even before I start using a tool. You could have used a Tableau, you can use a Tableau. So there are various such tools which are available. So my recommendation is in all of these is first understand the basics, go through the, someone who has got, you attend, there are a lot of online classes which are there, go through, understand the online classes, and then use that understanding. Maybe you can get a certification course or work on a project. If your company provides you that opportunity, you make best use of the opportunity, learn through work experience.
Great. Thank you, sir, for that. And this question from Vishal. Sir, where should we start first to build a career in ADA?
So I would rather give you in a different way. Where do you
Sure.
start? You should start from what interests you, not what is recommended to you. If your interest is, let's say, I want to learn, so let's put this way, I want to learn information technology, then my energy should be on IT. If my energy is to learn audit, my energy should be there. If my energy is towards join a company and I should learn a business, that is, first of all, I should look at what is my core strength. These one information that whatever you talk about analytics and all of this, you're using your experience. The tool is actually exploiting. I mean, you are exploiting the tool by using your own experience. That is exactly what the tool does. Tool by itself does not have any power. Whereas your experience, your knowledge. So if you have the core domain knowledge, expertise with you, then whatever tool that you have, you're just applying it and then getting it. For instance, suppose if I have used to use an analysis of, let's say today whether it's going to rain, right? I may look at the wind speed, I may look at the clouds that are forming, I may look at all of these, right? And then probably come through this and then say, maybe the wind speed is this much, it might carry, all these clouds would get merged into it, and probably it's become severe at this point and it might rain. But let's say if I don't have that knowledge, I'm just looking at the sky and say, hey, listen, it's going to rain or not. That is the difference I'm talking about. Now, do we need to knowledge of audit? No, you need to have the skill set, right? See, you may make analysis of, you can use data, but what is that you want to use data analytics for? You're, let's say, using for data analytics, let's say in a research, right? So therefore, you're seeing a pattern in a research and development in pharma company. This does not relate to audit alone. Again, as I said, data analytics is not to audit, data analytics is not to finance alone. So I'm using in a research and development. So I'm testing certain molecules and the patterns of it. So I may put all of this information in this data analytics. I may put it in a Tableau and then start understanding how it is working, or in a Python, and start understanding how it is. Then I can do a visualization of this information capture. So data analytics is comprehensive onto the company. It's not merely to audit, merely to finance people. It is to the entire spectrum. So if you really see wherever there are researchers, wherever the company is looking at expanding, those companies which invest in research, companies which invest in technology, will use more of analysis. Then audit is just one last leg of all of this, because you got a responsibility towards some stakeholders. But if you really look at all of these, data analytics is a much larger, and therefore you can use in your own I would say organization, or for instance HR, right? Why does people leave, right? If I make an analysis, which are the people who leave, which is a college which they come from and which they leave, who are the people who at what level they leave. If I make an analysis using data analytics, probably I might say, hey, listen, my recruitment policy, I should do it, or my training, I should change it, and therefore this is how it will look. So you can look at that part. So to answer your question, it is whether require knowledge of audit. No, your domain expert is what is required. Your business expertise is what is needed.
Sure, sir. And there's one more question from Prajesh. Sir, the evolution of an audit team due to technology is inevitable. So how can we advance ourselves to keep up with the pace?
See, as long as the technology does not keep this the speed of the light, right, we will be able to catch up. Second thing is, it is not about catching up. Let me be very honest, right? I gave you an analysis. All I need to do, I sat here because I have not even prepared for the questions which Vishal had asked. I just, through my experience, I said, so I have got somebody who's got an IT guy sitting. I said, I want this analysis. Give me the report. That's how I need. So, but this expert knowledge is what I need to possess, the domain knowledge. So, Monica, what is important is audit will be done by softwares. Auditors will not be required, but auditors will be required when there is a judgment that is required. For instance, whether, see, you may have a pattern saying that all assets should be depreciated over a 20 years period. That is what machine does. But the judgment is, you did a physical verification and found that the machine is not to the optimal, and therefore you need to depreciate further up. That is what the intelligence and expert knowledge of an auditor does, not the software. So therefore, that's why I said, don't be a slave to an IT software, but software should be slave to you, because then only you know how to exploit.
Sure. Thank you, Ganesh.
Right. We are up on the hour. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. There's last question that came from Kanika. So keeping in perspective of time, we'll take this one last question, sir. Hello, sir. I'm an Indian CA and a banking professional on a senior role. I'm in banking sector for the last 16 years. I'm pursuing my CPA. 2 questions, sir. First one, are there any opportunities for working in Big Four firms for banking professionals in India or Canada?
Okay. Now with this changing in regulations, in the Reserve Bank of India. I mean, you need to understand the realities that's happening up in India. With the changing regulations in India, which says no audit firm can have more than 4 or 6 or 8 at maximum, depending upon the size, for a period. So that opens up for advisory. So therefore, from an audit role, it becomes an advisory role. So therefore, there are opportunities. The question is not on your degree. The question is not whether I have a CPA, therefore I've got. The question then is, do you have the core banking knowledge? Degree is just an added advantage that you go through and apply it. Because when you say CPA, you have to see predominantly at this point in time, CPAs are basically accepted in US, Canada, elsewhere, right? But that is not what when you join. When you join, if you have got core banking expertise, the core banking knowledge, you may have banking knowledge in, let's say, credit appraisal, or you might, or the credit monitoring, or you could have something related to, let's say, complying to Basel norms, right? Those are the things that becomes more relevant when you switch to any, because what is important for all of us, we need to understand, it is not a degree. Degree is just a stepping stone for your interview. After that, once you get a job, it's your knowledge, it's your domain expertise which will take you through. Okay, so that becomes very, very critical.
Right,
I hope
sir.
I've answered, Kanika.
Yes. So there is one more question added to that. Sir, what courses would you recommend for switching from banks to Big Four firms?
There is no courses that are required to switch from banking to Big Four. All you need is good communication skills, good domain expertise, good understanding of the changes in the current laws that impacts banking, and looking at those where there are where you will create value to the organization, not the other way around. Have a resume that speaks of your achievements. Don't go to an organization which speaks of its achievements. That's a gap you'll always have.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. So, yes, sir, we have already crossed 4 minutes. So, sir, would you like to take the last question, or shall we end up?
No, go ahead. Which is the last question? No problem.
Sure, sir. It's from Supriya. Sir, data analytics helps in analyzing. Does use of technology shift a little accountability of the auditor? That's the question.
End of the day, whoever pens the report is responsible. It doesn't shift. See, we had physical, manual, automated, or there are various processes. These are basically a process driven, which is a tool that is assisting you. That's why I said this tool, if you don't use it properly, does not give you the result. But the tool, if you use it appropriately, may give you the desired results, and therefore that adds value to the client. Remember one thing, when you use the data analytics, you should always provide insights. Data analytics should provide insights. Data analytics should not be used like an Excel sheet, copy, paste, and say all of tick, 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 and say everything is fine. No, that shows if you don't get an insight, that means your interest or your thought process or the content exploiting the digital, there is some missing. That's why I said requires a lot of brainstorming, requires a lot of expertise.
Sure. So I'm just checking if we have any other questions. Sir, I think we are out of questions. And thank you so much, Ganesh sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time on your weekend. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. And yes, I think that's it, sir.
All right. So, is Shripal there or not there?
Yes, Shripal sir is there.
Yes, sir, I'm listening.
मैं बोला श्रीपाल भाग गया क्या बोलती
नहीं
इस
सर,
बारे की कनाडा टूर चला गया क्या बोलती
जहाँ स्टूडेंट्स है वहाँ मैं हमेशा रहता सर. No, it was an amazing session, sir. As always, data analytics, I think that is the next thing which is coming up, and that's why I thought that This is something which is really important, and I'm sure that the attendees have enjoyed the session. And any last minute things, sir, from your end, which you want Simandar or Sripal's team or the students should know or should implement? Any last minute things from your end?
So one of the things is your time discipline, which I'm to be very honest, if it is beyond 11 normally, I give it back. So this is something, be punctual. That is something which has to be done. You have to be there 15 minutes before. You should not be waiting for something. But what is important, leave all this, but these are more administrative. But what is important is give a ray of hope to the students who come to you. Give a value for the amount they spend with you. The greatest thing that you can give back to the students of Simadar is not what you teach. What is the value that you've given to them through your teaching process, and how have they benefited through that process? If your value is only a degree, that is not the value. That is only a process that you've gone through. But if I go through this process and give you a value, that is what is needed in this. So in today's world of repetition, today the world of homogeneity of materials that are going through and same level of speaking, what really is happening is experience, practical experience are not shared, but theoretical experience are shared to pass an exam. When you focus on theory with practice, the ability to recall is less. When the ability to recall is less, your passing percentage is not high. So if you help people explain concepts, help people explain practical application, and then relate to your course syllabus, then value is created. So this thing is, don't look at just the percentages. Percentages is also a determination for you to do angel funding. But what is important is, if you need to have loyalties, if you need to be the word, they need to be the word of your institute. You have to always create values, and that's how it moves. So that's what I thought is more important.
Thank you so much, sir. It's an excellent thing that the value addition have started with your session itself. And with respect to discipline, I think we have joined in 15 minutes before, but my students have made me waiting, and good to see that you have pointed out that, and the people who made it later, I hope you understand the value of discipline. Because of them, I think we made Ganesh sir waiting also. And sir is telling that I have come late, but no, sir. I've joined in 20 minutes before, and I start my classes also 20 minutes before always. I've been like that. And I think being a chartered accountant, I think that's the first thing. Professionalism is something which is very important, and good that you have pointed out that. And I'm pretty much sure that next time the folks will join on time, and they would respect the timing of the professional also. Not just because you're a Deloitte partner or something like that, but any professional who is coming up, I think the timings are very, very important, and that's where one must respect that. And we thoroughly take that feedback, sir. And second thing, on the value addition, I think we already have started with your session, and we'll keep doing that and keep implementing that on a frequent basis. Thank you so much, sir.
Wonderful. And I really appreciate you and your institution for really taking up the effort to do it. I think you're doing a wonderful job. So compliments to you for that.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, guys. Anything else? Anyone? I think they are coming up with a lot of feedbacks and thank you messages. So that's all we have from today. Thank you so much, Ganesh, sir, for taking.
Thank you very much. So have a very good weekend. Take care. Happy Dasra to all of you.
Thank you, guys.
Happy Dasra, sir. Happy weekend, you too.
Yeah.